Hey! Welcome back. If you've spent any time on our nation's highways or byways or in an airport, President-elect Trump's $1 trillion infrastructure plan can sound pretty enticing.
We are going to fix our inner cities and rebuild our highways, bridges, tunnels, airports, schools, hospitals. We're going to rebuild our infrastructure, which will become, by the way, second to none. And we will put millions of our people to work as we rebuild it.
Oh, well, it sounds like a pretty good plan. And it does seem to have some bipartisan support, but when you shine a light on who would really be footing the bill and who would benefit financially, who do you think stands to gain? We the people or a select few developers who are going to make a ton of money? I love money, don't get me wrong. I need to ask an expert, so that's why Brenberg is here, Associate Professor of Business and Economics, and the Chair of the Program in Business and Finance at the King's College right here in Manhattan. Welcome back.
Good to be here.
So he's a construction guy.
Yep.
He wants to build things. He wants to improve them. You can't blame him for that, but who can afford $1 trillion?
Well, look, infrastructure is important, but you have to be a little bit skeptical when both Democrats and Republicans are on board with something, because it probably means it's going to be spending that benefits them more than it does the average person.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So that's what you need to look at here. Look, first of all, infrastructure is a jobs program, not a good idea. That's what he's talking about here, putting millions of people back to work. That's not going to happen. We've seen the results time and again. Whether it was the stimulus of 2009 here in the U.S. or in Japan over the past decade, these things just don't produce jobs. Number two, the money almost always goes to projects that are great for politicians, but have really dubious economic value for the rest of us.
Yeah, and it's really hard to show the cause and effect relationship between making this kind of $1 trillion investment. I mean, there was already a bill that Congress passed for $300
last year
billion.
For $300 billion. Now, look, Trump is actually, he's typical for him. He hasn't put out a detailed plan here. He's talked about everything from $550 billion to $1 trillion. He's talked about the government funding it to private sector funding it. So
now let's talk about private sector funding, because that is actually an interesting idea, and we've seen some success with that, particularly the toll roads in Southern California. Can you have a private partnership building infrastructure programs that don't involve tax breaks and just grotesque crony capitalism?
Well, if you want to do it that way, just privatize it. Period. Just privatize the systems, and you can have that. The problem.
How do you do that?
Well, it's like a utility basically. So you say, look, you're going to run the toll road, you're going to collect tolls, and we're going to get a percentage of that, and the government's going to regulate that process. That's not. It's sort of what we're talking about here. We're talking about toll roads. The problem is the infrastructure that we need to fix is a lot of the things that you can't really put a toll on, like the sewage system in a city, for example, or just updating roads that already exist. So if you want to put a toll on everything, okay, fine, but that's unlikely. And by the way, guess who doesn't like toll roads? Taxpayers don't like toll roads. Citizens. Now, I think
they're already paying for them, and they have to pay for them again.
And look, I like privatizing infrastructure, but you're going to run into problems there. So the problem when you're talking about $1 trillion on this model, a lot of the experts are saying you're just not going to be able to raise that kind of money from the private sector.
We already pay so much in a federal gas tax.
Well,
and that money doesn't even go to infrastructure projects. We know that.
Yeah. Well, look, the bottom line is infrastructure should be prioritized from the bottom up. It's local communities that should be paying for it, that should be identifying the needs, not the federal government, okay? If a stimulus plan didn't make sense under Obama, it doesn't make sense because Trump is the president. These kinds of things always end up going to projects where the ribbon cutting is great and the plaque on the wall is great, but it's things that really don't actually help.
They are structurally the exact same thing. I mean, you nailed it there. It is top down, which means it's wasteful, and the taxpayers are the ones who get hosed. I hope that there is some free marketeers in there who's whispering in the president-elect's ear. I think it should be Brenberg. What genius. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming back by. I appreciate it. Keep us informed, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you,
Have a beautiful holiday with your family.
Sure.